Hi,
Hello.
Paula.
Hi, Peter.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Where's my mouse? Oh, yeah.
All right. How are you doing?
Good. I've been reading your books.
Great.
I'm at the second one.
Uh-huh. You printed them out. Great.
I don't like to read on the computer. It's too
Yeah.
much blue light.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. How's that going? How's the process for you?
Very good. Very interesting. Also nice now to read about the history again.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yesterday I read about the Tantra yoga, tantric yoga or Tantra yoga. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Good.
Great. 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 Yeah, I have more to share with you. And I wanted to get feedback first on whether it feels helpful to have.
Yes, it does.
Okay. Great.
Of course, I have a few questions, but
Yeah, go ahead.
uh, yeah, I dived right into it.
Sure.
Yeah, from that book about the Sat Chakra Beda,
Yeah.
the piercing of the chakras. The on page, what's yes, no page number.
Yeah, sorry. I think I completed formatting the other one, but I didn't do the index and page numbers for that one yet. But
Yeah,
we might be able to.
so it's about the Brahma Nadi
Yeah.
that inside, like no, it's like a tree, like channels inside channels.
Uh-huh.
The Brahma Nadi extends from the opening at the top of the Swayambhu Linga in the Muladhara chakra.
Okay.
What is the Swayambhu Linga?
In in some of the iconography of the chakras, you see animals, you see colors, and you see some other symbols that are in each of the chakras in the iconography. And so in some of the images of the chakras, you have a linga, which is
Like this linga,
say again?
like the
Yeah,
sculpture, the linga.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so the image of the linga is associated with the first chakra in some traditions. I don't
Okay.
know what a good translation of the word svayambhu would be, but sva refers to one's true self. Ambu might relate to love, but I'm going to look it up just to give you a better.
Because it speaks about the opening at the top of the linga.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you like to just read that section, or I can look for it here on the.
Yeah. It's in
Uh,
two,
I,
the
I can.
subtle anatomy. Brahma Nadi. This is the innermost hollow channel within the Chitrini Nadi. It's the direct conduit for the ascending Kundalini. It extends from the opening at the top of the Swayambhu Linga in the Muladhara chakra, referred to as the mouth of Hara or the Brahma Dvara, the door of Brahman, up to the Sahasrara Padma, the abode of Paramashiva, the Adi Deva primal deity.
Yeah.
It's about the Brahmanadi, but it says where the Brahmanadi starts, no? At the opening, at the
Yeah.
top, this linga. Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes sometimes the descriptions are, they mix symbolism with anatomy, and it can become confusing because there are specific locations in the body where you can associate the chakras, the nadis, but then there is imagery associated with them, and here it's mixing the imagery with the anatomy, and that's a little confusing because I don't think all the traditions have the Swayambhu Linga associated with the first chakras. But I can share with you here the description of what Swayambhu Linga means.
But it's not referring to the top of the lingam, no? It's an energetic, a symbolic.
Yeah, I would say it's not referring, although the Vajranadi is sometimes referred to as actually extending to the tip of the penis for the men. So there is an association between those innermost nadis and the sexual organs.
Yeah, because when the lingam's not erected, it's the top is in the root chakra, no?
Yeah,
So it makes sense. Okay.
yeah. But I'll read to you what it says about Swayambhu Lingam, and I think in the case of this particular text, it's not referring to the physical penis, but we'll see what it says here about the Swayambhu Lingam. A Swayambhu Lingam is a self-created or natural lingam that appears without human effort and is discovered in the place where it now stands. These lingams are often oval-shaped stones and do not require a prana pratishta, a Hindu ceremony for consecrating an idol, because they already embody the power of Shiva. Examples of Swayambhu Lingams can be found in various temples across India. For instance, the Shanaleshwara Swayambhu temple in Punjab houses a Swayambhu Lingam of Lord Shiva. Another example is the Amarnath cave, where an ice lingam forms naturally due to water dripping from the cave's roof and freezing, symbolizing the Swayambhu nature of the lingam. The 12 Jyotirlingams, or lingams of light, are also considered Swayambhu lingams and are the holiest and most worshipped of all lingams. These lingams are natural formations that have not been moved and are found in temples built around them. Swayambhu lingams are significant in Hinduism as they are believed to be manifestations of Lord Shiva's divine presence and are revered for their spiritual and natural origins. So normally what it refers to is usually a stone formation
Yeah.
that is natural. And actually, I have one here, one of these Swayambhu Lingams. Not sure if it's here on my... Yeah, maybe it's at home. But it's a little oval-shaped stone that I think you find them
And
especially...
it looks like an egg.
Yeah, sometimes a little longer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so
I have one.
it's
And
not
I
the
have-
typical more straight lingam image you see, and it's also not completely oval. It's sort of somewhere in between. And actually, I have it right here. Yeah,
That's a Swayambhu linga.
yeah,
Okay. That's a small one.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So there is, let me see if I can find here an image of the Muladhara with the Swayambhu Lingam, just so that we're clear visually on what's being also here represented. First of all, I'll show you I've shown you one that I have here, a small one, but I'll show you also this one that came up in a search.
Yeah.
And you can see this, it's the same shape really as what I've got
Yeah.
here. I don't know what the size of that one is, but it's the
But
same.
where's the opening?
It's it's got a kind of a different colored part there. Yeah, and
Yeah.
even the like a little hole.
So I take it as symbolic.
Yeah, I would assume that it's mixed. It's mixing symbolism with the sometimes. So this could be a good time to talk about the chakras and the symbolism, and what the significance is or what the power is of symbolism. And this extends all the way to the idea of the Devis and Devas themselves, right? Let's say beings that tend to be referred to as gods and goddesses. One of the documents I've created, I haven't shared it yet, is actually specifically about this, about the Devas and Devis, and I printed that one out for myself as well. The Divine Tapestry,
You are very small now.
Exploring Tantra, Deities, and the Path to Self-Realization in Indian Spirituality. And because one of the things that can be confusing for people when they come across Tantra, when they're engaged with Tantra to some degree, is how do you relate to these beings? Are they gods? Are you supposed to become Hindu? Are you supposed to become a polytheist? Are you supposed to become a worshiper of Shiva or of some form of the goddess? Like what's the proper relationship to these beings or energies, or what people tend to call gods and goddesses? And one aspect of this is relating specifically to the Devas, the Devis. You know, the word itself translates more accurately, rather than meaning gods or goddesses. The word Deva and Devi means a radiant one, a shining one that is radiant with light. And the word divine comes from that source, right? The Indo-European language family goes back to Sanskrit. Basically, our use of the word divine,
Yeah.
it comes from Deva, Devi. My belief, let's say, I think this is a coherent theory, but I can't say this as a complete confirmed historical fact. But the way that I see the development of our perspective about the Hindu culture, the same would be true of the Egyptian culture and many of them. But what has happened in the past is that you have Western anthropologists, Western theologists looking at a culture they don't really understand, and they're looking at it from the lens of monotheistic elitism, right? They see themselves as being part of the right culture, because like they see the monotheism that they identify with as being the most advanced understanding of reality and of the divine. And so they're looking from this perspective of, well, we've reached the pinnacle of understanding, and so we're probably looking at cultures that don't have the same sophistication of clarity about the nature of God. That's the assumption they're beginning with. And so when they see all this iconography, all these representations of figures in temples and being honored or worshipped, they think, well, okay, it's a clear case of polytheism. But the impression I have is that the word polytheism itself is often misapplied because it just comes from a misunderstanding of what is being witnessed. And there is a term, there is a reasonably well-known term, which is pantheism, the idea that everything is infused with the divine. Pan meaning everything. So everything is divine. Everything is a manifestation of the divine. So one way of understanding pantheism is to say that the universe itself, all of it is God. To some extent, that sounds like the tantric perspective, that the universe is Shakti. It's the divine coming into manifestation. But there was I'm not sure if he was a German theologian but I can't remember the name, but there was a guy, I think he might be mentioned in this document here, actually, when it comes to pantheism.
You're still sharing your screen?
I'm still sharing the screen?
Yeah.
Okay. To change that because...
if you want to show something.
Well, yeah. Let me see. Curiously, I don't see where it says to stop sharing. Has it stopped? Or is it still sharing? No, it's still sharing.
At the bottom, there is a green button.
Yeah, except that normally it would say, there it is. Because the only one I could see was actually saying share instead of stop share. I thought it had already stopped.
It says share, yeah.
Yeah. So there was this, I'm not sure if he was a theologian, but he was studying the Hindu culture. And he came up with a new name for a new category because he realized that there wasn't really an adequate category to describe what he was starting to understand better. And so he came up with the word panentheism. So pantheism, everything is the divine. Panentheism is a view that a culture sees everything as the divine, but also the divine is not limited to everything that is the universe. So you could say the universe is the divine, but also the divine extends beyond in some sense. So it is transcendental as well as immanent. The idea of everything that is in existence being the divine is the immanence, the presence, you could say, of the divine within everything. And panentheism recognizes an aspect of the divine that is also beyond manifestation. So it brings together both the ideas of a transcendent and an immanent divinity. And some cultures, many of the ancient cultures really actually have tried to engage with life in a kind of magical way, relating to the elements, the potencies of life, whether you think of it as the elements like water and air and fire and earth and ether, or archetypes like lightning and the sky and the rain. But they've tried to engage with these forces, and you could say personalized them or anthropomorphized them. They've given them a human form, a name, a story, a family, so there is all this humanization of the forces. And but the fact that these representations exist of natural forces or you could even think of them as supernatural forces. But the fact that any of these representations exist, the fact that these forces are invoked, or that people might make sacrifices to bring them into harmony, to appease these energies, is not necessarily a polytheistic context. Because the culture may recognize a single reality, a single all-encompassing beingness or God, a single divine reality, let's say. But also, even though they may recognize a single divine reality, they may also recognize the multiplicity of experiences and forces that come into play and relate to those as principles, natural laws even. And this is what my Egyptian teacher said about the Egyptian pantheon, right? That they weren't actually gods. They were natural laws. The word neteru, which was translated as gods, meant, according to him, natural laws. So this kind of introduces the whole idea of how we relate to symbolism, what purpose it serves, and how it can be misunderstood. What exactly is meant by these images and these forces and these forms. So, in the case of the chakras, Devas and Devis are also often associated with each chakra. So you could say a potency, an elemental force, an aspect of the divine is represented as residing or ruling over or influencing each of these elements associated with the chakras, or each of these facets of consciousness and energy. I don't remember in which text it is, but I think in one of the ancient tantric texts, there is even a question that arises about whether the chakras exist inherently, or whether we bring them into existence through our visualization. Because the practice of visualizing them had existed for some time. And so the discussion was, do they exist independently of us visualizing them, or do we bring this energetic phenomenon into being by our focus, by invoking these qualities? And there may be a mix. It may not be an either or. There may be an inherent quality associated with each of these places because they correspond anatomically with nerve plexuses. So they correspond with places where nadis cross, a certain amount of nadis cross, and this creates a power center, a vortex, and a place through which you can influence our body, our energetic system, because you're influencing several nadis at once by concentrating awareness at where they converge. So
when I was reading about the grantis, I thought maybe it's not the chakras that we are feeling, it's where the energy is blocked.
That's also quite possible, that one of the more common reasons to feel sensations is blockages, rather than, let's say, pure life force itself being very specific in its sensations. And the same, it's pretty much the same thing, in fact, what you're saying, to what I say relating to Kundalini, that all the things that people tend to associate with awakening Kundalini are the sensations associated with the resistance, the blockages, the difficulty in energy flowing. So the sensations that arise are where there's friction, where there is some difficulty, and a well-managed, graceful Kundalini awakening could be so smooth that there is no resistance. And perhaps not even any particular sensations associated with it. There is a sense of wholeness, fullness, grace, completeness, communion, but not necessarily any great experiences in the energy body if there isn't resistance. Yeah.
Yeah. It's my experience also in my own body.
Yeah.
I mean, you still feel when the energy just goes through, you just feel you feel it because there's a change, no, in being. Not sure if that is every time resistance.
Not necessarily. I think also what can happen is that the energy current acts like electricity in the body, and the way that muscles contract when an electric current goes through them, you can get let's say, a wave of contraction through the body, not in a sense of, let's say, unpleasant tightness, but just as a natural consequence of the bioelectricity moving through the body. The current of electricity creates a muscular response.
But no, this I don't have anymore. I never really had it, but I had it. I often have that it comes like this, and then there's the sound coming from the root, and it's like the massive wave. Yeah, so maybe there is some fear, but then it just goes through. Yeah.
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 Okay.
Just this, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Or it can be also very quiet and nothing. All of a sudden you are enlightened. Yeah.
Yeah. It's often we
Without any
associate.
like no ecstasy, nothing. Very quiet. That's my favorite.
Yeah. No drama.
Yeah, no.
It's easy for us to get caught up in wanting to experience the sensations, the lights, the drama.
I had it once after yoga and breath and pranayama, that I felt the energy coming up, and then I normally have then here in the throat like this, there has to overcome some resistance. Like if it feels like you have to purge, and then I have to relax into it. And I had it like it was, and that's why I don't know if it's a projection from what I heard before, but I could never really understand just by reading what the chakras, what function they have in the psychoenergetic function. And then when the energy went through, I understood each chakra by itself, what it represents, and then it went through. And I was the world. Yeah. And so somehow chakras must exist, or I was projecting it.
In some sense, you could say that in some sense they exist naturally. That's what I was saying, that we have these nerve plexuses, and that creates and that there is a natural phenomenon associated with these places of concentrated energy. And of course there's the central nervous system, right? There's the spinal cord. So there are inherent, even biological and anatomical processes that are associated with bioelectricity and consciousness. And the chakras are related to these physiological processes. The usual perspective would be that the subtle body is primary. So the chakras are primary level, and what we see anatomically, what we experience physiologically, it's at a denser level of what has been brought into being through the causal body, the energetic body. But aspects of the chakras may not be inherently in the subtle body. They may be ways to work with the subtle body. You can, let's say, invoke a powerful symbol, something that's meaningful for you. For example, I mean, if someone's Christian, they could just see Jesus in each of their chakras, right? That's an example. Does it mean that there's literally a little Jesus in each chakra? No, but it can still have a powerful effect to, let's say, conjure up something that is very potent for you, and to use that to focus a quality of awareness in places in your body where great influence can take place, great change can take place energetically, and therefore also physiologically. So some of the symbolism is anatomical, and some of it is cultural. And it sounds to me, going back to what you were saying about the Swayambhu Lingam, that sounds to me like this mixture of cultural symbolism with anatomical elements, because the nadis, but even the nadis, I mentioned that within one of the texts they discuss, do the chakras exist before or only after we start to visualize them? And so what I'm saying essentially is aspects of them are pre-existing, but some qualities of them can be brought into existence through our visualization. And the same can be true of the nadis. Some are anatomical. Some of them are they're let's say natural, inherent phenomena. But if we visualize movement of energy over and over and over and over and over, we're going to create a current of energy. So we're capable of creating new energy centers or currents by consistently moving energy or focusing energy. So this is why it's not an either or situation of like, what exactly are the chakras? Are they pre-existing or are they an invented thing? Aspects of it can be brought into the chakras through visualization.
And when you put a pendulum, there is something,
Yeah.
There's a concentration of moving energy.
Yeah, but I'm not questioning the validity of the chakras as an inherent phenomenon, because they are associated with nerve plexuses as well. That's a very strong energetic bioelectric concentration in the body.
Yeah.
Yeah. An image that comes to mind, if you had a set of rivers in a country that were polluted and you wanted to purify the rivers, if you could either go to the place where there's the source of all the rivers, or a place where the rivers cross, and you put the purificatory substances in this place where the rivers cross, you're going to influence all the rivers, because in that single point you influence the whole system. And so that's the same idea in the chakras. You're influencing the greater system very effectively because you have all these crossing points of the energy system there.
Yeah. I'm not sure about the colors, because these rainbow colors, I never see them when I meditate.
Yeah, that's I think an example of the cultural addition to the chakra system, the rainbow colors. And I think we talked about this a few weeks ago, but they basically got added in at the beginning of towards the end of the 19th century. The idea of the rainbow colors got added to the chakra map, let's say, and it's become adopted in pop spirituality and modern spirituality. So today people associate the chakras with the rainbow colors, but it's a good example of what we're talking about here, that you can use symbolism that is powerful to bring about an effect. And so the rainbow colors represent the totality, the whole range of frequencies. So if you concentrate on every color and let's say activate the richness associated with all the colors, what you're effectively going to do is to activate the whole range of frequencies that white light is composed of. So it's using the rainbow colors as a kind of mandala, as a representation of the totality.
Within the matrix.
You mean because what do you mean that the colors are not inherently?
Yeah, only rainbow when it goes through a prisma or the atmosphere.
Yeah,
Otherwise not. That's why I doubt it.
yeah,
I thought it was invented. Yeah, but yeah,
yeah.
that's another discussion. Yeah.
It's in some sense anything that is given form has some degree of limitation to it,
Yeah.
but we still use imagery to evoke a sense of what goes beyond it. Symbols are like portals in some sense. And so even if the seven colors are not, let's say, the ultimate, the fact that we're associating them with wholeness can lead us to enter into a meditative state where we recall the feeling of wholeness. So they can
Yeah.
still serve the purpose of
Okay.
giving us the feeling of wholeness, even if it's not literally like you add the seven colors and you get God. It's like it's not a literal mathematical thing, but you can evoke the feeling of wholeness.
Mm.
So this is a way to say, it's not, even if it's a relatively recent invention, 100 and whatever, 130, 140 years ago, perhaps it started to be used. This rainbow system for the chakras, even if it's a recent invention, it doesn't totally invalidate the possibility of using it as a meditative tool and leading you to a feeling of wholeness by doing the practice. But it can be important to realize that the power of the practice is actually in consciousness, not in the colors. It's the fact that focusing is powerful that makes the practice powerful. It's the fact that your openness to the divine is being practiced. That's what's powerful. It's not the rainbow in itself. It's the availability to the divine that is being cultivated as you practice, whatever you visualize. It's the quality of attention that you're cultivating, the openness, the receptivity to the divine. And and that's why, sorry, just one thing more. And that's why it's not so much like what's the right symbol, what's the right color, what's the right this or that, because different cultural contexts will give you different maps, and different names and different images. And this is one of the challenges we have today when we want to, let's say, learn and honor the tradition of Tantra, but some aspects of it, they just don't relate to our culture. The symbolism doesn't mean anything to us, And so in some cases, it makes sense to leave some of the symbolism aside because it doesn't have the potency that it would have had to people that for whom those symbols meant something. Sorry, you were going to say something.
Yeah. That's a bit a controversial question. If it's also if it would be a satanic symbol, is this still openness to the divine?
Yeah, interesting. Because in fact, there are symbols that have different meanings in different contexts. So, for example, the five-pointed star, some people will see that and associate it with black magic. And the hand gesture, there are mudras that some people will say, oh, that's the symbol of the horns and of Satan, and
Yeah.
and yet you see it in some saints, in iconography using the same hand gesture. So depending on what it means to you, it's going to influence what energy you're focusing, you know? So it matters more what it means to you than what it means to someone else. You're the one gathering the energy, and the symbol will resonate in you in the way that will influence the quality of energy you're gathering.
So if I'm the one focusing on energy, then I define what manifests, so to say.
Yes, but so I just want to add to that. There are also, you could
As
say,
long as I'm conscious, I mean.
yeah, there is a collective unconscious. There are archetypal forces. There are, let's say, ancestral memories. And so religious symbolism, magical symbolism, they have gathered a certain amount of energy as well, And so using them, then they don't become completely independent of their history. So there is a combination there.
Yeah. It needs a lot of awareness, no?
Yeah, they should be used with a certain amount of caution, because they carry memory, you could say. They do they're not neutral. It's not that they're completely neutral until you apply a meaning to them. They in many cases have already been charged up, and even if you're unfamiliar with it, you might tune into their charge.
I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Something that I've noticed in the world of, let's say, conspiracy theories, almost everything gets questioned, and questioning can be a healthy process. Where you see, like, okay, this symbol has power, and people think it means this, but maybe it doesn't. Maybe we've been tricked. Maybe we've been fooled, and maybe this is disempowering us rather than empowering us. And so, being willing to ask the question, being willing to go deep in seeing how things really are, it's wise to question, right? It's wise to not just go blindly along with things just because that's what people have done in the past. But it can also happen that we become automatic in our inversion of things. Like, if people value this, then it must be a conspiracy. It must be disempowering us, and so it must be the opposite of what I'm being told. So there's a risk sometimes that we will become so habitually questioning that we cannot accept even what is true, because we will always be assuming, no, this can't be true because everything is a lie, and so this can't be true. And so there will probably, for everything, be someone who's come up with a theory of how it's not that, it's the opposite of that, because that's part of what has developed in our culture. It's a questioning that in many cases it's healthy questioning, and in some cases it's what's the word, compulsive questioning. Like it's not even with discernment anymore. It's just applying the same principle of rejection and inversion to try to get to the truth. But when it becomes a habit, when it becomes compulsive and lacks the discernment, then it can lead us to not recognize what is helpful to us. Yeah. But it's funny, for example, you asked about satanic symbolism. The five-pointed star with a point facing upwards can mean protection. It can be a protective symbol. But for many people, the only association they think of when they see it is black magic and witchcraft and Satanism.
Then Gurdjieff is using it also, but not in a satanic way. Yeah,
Who? Gurdjieff, is that what you said?
Gurdjieff.
Gurdjieff, yeah.
Yeah. And they're with the numbers,
I don't remember. Was it as part of, because he also worked with a system, Enneagram, which has a similar form.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not the 5 star, it's the Enneagram. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What other questions came up relating to the?
Then they have this table with the chakras.
Yeah, I'm gonna make a better format one, because it was all too squeezed. It's too much information to fit on an A4.
Or you make smaller writing.
Yeah.
About the crown center, there's one sentence. So it's like when when all the 6 chakras are pierced, and then the divine nectar, and then there's a union of Shiva and Shakti, and the divine nectar Amrita starts to flow. To revitalize the being and locus, and what is locus? I have to translate, of ultimate liberation and enlightenment. And then there's a sentence within this pericarp, I'm not sure if I say it right, resides the guru, the causal body, Karana Sharira, and the supreme Bindu. And this I didn't understand the sentence.
Okay. I'm just seeing, is that in the chart?
No, it's after the chart.
Just after the chart. Okay.
It's the passage about the crown center.
Okay, I've got it here. Okay. Transcending the 6 chakras is the Sahasrara Padma, the 1,000-petaled or infinitely petaled lotus situated at or above the crown of the head. It's not typically counted among the 6 chakras of the Sat Chakra Bheda. Yeah, Sat means 6 in this case. So it's the piercing of the 6 chakras, but represents the ultimate destination. It's the abode of Paramashiva, pure consciousness beyond all elements, colors, letters, and dualities. It is the site of the final union of Shiva and Shakti, the source of divine nectar, Amrita, that flows down to revitalize the being, and the locus of ultimate liberation and enlightenment. Within its pericarp resides the Guru. Pericarp, I think, is a term relating to a flower. So I think it has to do with the symbolism of the flower. Or it's
it refers to the crown. Within its pericarp, that refers to the crown, yeah? So in the crown resides the Guru, and then the causal body and the supreme Bindu. There I need some explanation.
Yeah. So remember the idea that each chakra represents an element, and that in some sense the cosmological process of manifestation happens through the subtlest, unmanifest to ether, ether being, you could say, the space within which manifestation can occur, and then the densification through air, fire, water, earth. And so these levels of manifestation are represented in the chakras, and all the way up at the crown, you have the, you could say, primordial cause. So everything that happens beneath is in its potentiality there. So the causal, in its most primordial sense, in its most primary sense, is all the way up there in the crown.
Okay.
Because usually people speak of the causal body as actually, you could say, spreading, covering the whole body, as being like a layer of the subtle body. But here it's describing it as being at this point from which everything manifests. This place that's the first cause.
Bindu, this supreme Bindu.
Yeah.
The point from which everything manifests. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
What else?
I have to write this down, the point. Yeah. Then what was new to me is that to read that when Ida and Pingala are actually calm, and I need explanation what that means. Only then the Shushumna, a Shakti can rise up through the Shushumna. And
Only when Ida and Pingala what?
as the central channel becomes active, the Shushumna, the flow of prana in the side channels, Ida and Pingala, becomes quiescent or lifeless, so calm.
Yeah.
Indicating the unification of energies in the Shushumna.
Uh-huh.
And for the Ida and Pingala, I have several questions, because in some pictures you see them like snakes going through the chakras and crossing in the chakras. But in most more ancient images, you see them like going like left and right.
Yeah, like bowstrings.
Yeah.
Yeah, or like
I need some more explanation, because I have felt both, like when the snakes come up, and also like it just goes through. And
yeah. So we have perhaps one of the easiest references is the hemispheres of the brain. It's understood that each hemisphere of the brain specializes in a different quality of intelligence or of consciousness. The left side and the right side. And the left side and right side of the energy system in terms of Ida and Pingala correspond also with lunar and solar type qualities, masculine and feminine type qualities, hot and cold, this kind of complementarity. So one theory, you could say, is that the depiction of the two independent and residing just on either side is a way to very clearly point out that they're distinct qualities.
Mm.
And when they're depicted as interweaving, it's showing what we ideally want to bring about. We want to bring about their harmonization, and anatomically, I'm not sure how exactly the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system weave around the you know the central nervous system. Like how is that anatomically? I don't know to what extent these images are anatomically correct or more useful as symbolism in both cases, right? So I'm sure that the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system are neither shaped like bows on either side of the central channel, nor are they exactly like the caduceus form, but each one emphasizes distinct aspects of their qualities. So sometimes when you see them interweaving, one is depicted as white and the other black, so that you can still see that they're distinct. Each has a distinct quality. But the depiction of them interweaving makes it more difficult to understand how one side of the body has one quality and the other another quality, right? Because when they're interweaving, you've got the same amount on either side.
Yeah.
So one way of thinking of it is that it just shows the interconnectedness of them, the harmonization, the kind of dynamic interplay of the two. So you can think of them as functional representations rather than literal anatomical representations. Because if they were anatomical, one's got to be right and the other wrong because they're so different. But they're teaching tools. They transmit an idea.
Well, I started. I'm a Thai massage practitioner, no? So I studied Thai massage, and in the Thai medicine and Thai massage, they use also the Ida, Pingala, and Sushumna as real meridians.
Yeah.
Yeah, they call it energy lines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
But without the interweaving, just left and
Right.
yeah.
So on either side of the
The
spine,
spine.
right? Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, because in Thai massage is a mix of Chinese medicine and
Ayurvedic.
Ayurveda.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. But maybe this because the image of them crossing represents balance.
Yeah.
So and yeah, this for me makes sense that when they are in balance, then they are intertwined or they're crossing.
Yeah.
That me is a lot not logic is a good explanation.
Yeah, and it seems to be a very potent image in our ancestral memory. You know, even the associated with the DNA, this imagery comes up across many cultures. The interweaving serpents.
Yes.
So in some images, you see the crossings of the serpents happening at each chakra.
Yes.
So in that case, they're representing not necessarily literally Ida and Pingala, but they're representing the crossing of energies at each chakra, and like you said, the balancing of the forces.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what was new to me is that when the Chuchumna is activated, that Ida and Pingala become lifeless and calm. What does
Yes.
it mean? What does it feel like?
Well, it depends, because there is the type of samadhi, there's the type of activation of Sushumna Nadi that happens in a profound stillness of meditation, and even breathlessness. So that's the type of activation that's described there.
Okay.
the neutralizing of the forces of reactivity, like no engaging in like this or that in terms of our relationship to the senses, desires, activity. There's a complete stillness, a sense of wholeness and fulfillment. There's no impulse for movement of any kind. No life current is activated. There is just the pure sense of wholeness. And so it's a quiescent stillness and wholeness. And so referred to as neutralizing of Ida and Pingala.
Okay.
But there can also be a quality of presence that is uninhibited energy flow, in which they're not necessarily I'm hesitating because I've thought about this a lot and kind of meditated on this, and it seems for the most part, like I said, these descriptions come just they're about the yogic state of samadhi and stillness, and even the breathlessness. But that's only one form of samadhi. There can also be the, let's say, the engagement in life, in grace, and whether Ida and Pingala are active while we are engaged in life in a flow of grace, or whether energy is only flowing through the Sushumna. I'm not totally clear about that, actually.
Active, you mean there's energy flowing like through it? That's the definition of active. That the energy.
Yeah. Because if you think of Ida and Pingala as reactive forces or expressions of response to sensations, desires, to needs, concerns. If there's total tranquility and there's no sense of anything needs to be done, in that quality of awareness, there isn't an activation of Ida and Pingala. Because they're ways that we're responding to the world.
Okay.
In the most primary, like backwards, forwards, kind of on off kind of way, expansion, contraction. It's like a primary complementarity of responses. I had an experience while doing TRE once, trauma release exercises, and I had a kind of a vision where all these different maps of the energy body converged, and it all suddenly made sense. All the different mappings of the body, and something that I realized in that moment was also that when one of the most primary instincts we have, the fight or flight instinct, right? When we're responding to the possibility of danger, and the way that we're built as bipeds, if we're in a stance of readiness to fight, we'll put one foot forward, or even if we're just concerned that we're going to be attacked, right? We'll position ourselves in a way that we don't stand completely straight. We will position ourselves in readiness for engagement, right? And even that is an expression of Ida and Pingala in some sense. This expression of one-sidedness in response to the world, right? Whether it is to move forward or to move back, to step forward and to step back. These impulses are very, very primary in our subconscious as like lightning fast responses to impulses, to sensations, to even to subconscious forces. Yeah.
I have the 4 kittens here, and one just bit me in my ass.
I was seeing one behind you a moment ago. Very sweet.
Yeah.
Did you have any other questions? Or we can complete here and we can take them up next time if you prefer.
The time is already over. Or-
I don't mind addressing another question if it's convenient,
Yeah.
whatever, better for
In
you.
the section where it talks about Kriya Yoga, the dynamic approach, the goal of the Kriya Yoga practice is pathway clearance. And it says the experience sought is the feeling of prana flowing like a river, leading to divine intoxication, bhava, and ecstasy. And while I was reading that, I was wondering if orgasm, like the uncontrolled, is actually the uncontrolled prana shooting through the body, yeah? Is that orgasm?
It can be. Let me just read again what you were referring to. Goal, pathway clearance. While acknowledging the chakras, the primary focus in some Kriya interpretations is less on activating the specific qualities or powers, the siddhis of each chakra, and more on purifying the Sushumna pathway itself, making it clear for Kundalini's eventual unimpeded ascent. The experience sought is the feeling of prana flowing like a river, leading to divine intoxication, bhava, and ecstasy.
It's not a question about the specific text about the Kundalini goal, Kriya Yoga practice goal, but I just had the thought that what actually is orgasm
Yeah.
might be the right question,
Yeah.
energy-wise.
Yeah. It depends on to what extent we're able to release and let go. Because an orgasm can be relatively tight, just like a Kundalini awakening, right? We can be experiencing some energy flow, but also some tightness, some fear of the intensity. And an orgasm can be the same. We can be relatively open to energy flow, but with some residual tightness, like just as a Kundalini flow is potentially expanding our consciousness beyond familiar bounds, and the impulse to resist the intensity, to resist the expansion, to hold on to what's familiar. The same thing can happen in orgasm to some extent.
Yeah.
We're not completely letting go.
Yeah.
Because it's so much. And so there can be, let's say, a threshold that we're not willing to fully let go, to just loosen and to allow ourselves to dissolve in the experience. So what happens energetically will depend on to what extent we are really letting go. But potentially, and this is something that also came up in that TRE experience, the realization that a Kundalini release, a healing response of unblocking, and an orgasmic experience, they're potentially all very similar in terms of pure, uninhibited flow, a kind of resetting even through intensity of energy flow. So orgasm can involve the whole body experiencing a kind of an activation and a lightning-like aliveness, and even a kind of a purificatory quality to that intensity and that aliveness.
Yeah.
So sometimes people will say, yeah, Kundalini energy is sexual energy, and that's oversimplification, but it can be equivalent. The release and the whole bodied response can be very similar in how the how we feel and how the body is responding to it.
If, yeah, without training, is it can you say orgasm is an uncontrolled Kundalini activate like release?
I wouldn't say that simply because um, the way that I think is helpful to define Kundalini is that it's the evolutionary energy that is, it's like our impulse for growth, wholeness, and expansion into the divine. It's that force. And so a physiological orgasm doesn't necessarily.
It's just an energy release then.
Yeah,
Physiological orgasm.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Without activating. Yeah, okay.
yeah. But and I'm sure that this is also something you're familiar with in your work. When someone is relaxed, uninhibited, feeling in a place of trust, then the sexual enjoyment and the energetic flow, they all can kind of converge and come together.
Yeah.
So there
Yeah.
is an uninhibited, expansive flow that is, in some sense, it's sexual energy, in some sense, it's Kundalini, but it's not because they are just the same thing, but because everything comes together in that moment of uninhibited openness. Everything comes together. So the sexual energy is not separate from the Kundalini in that moment. Nothing is separate from anything. There's a sense of wholeness.
But sexual energy is just prana.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. One way to distinguish between sexual energy and Kundalini, because Kundalini is prana too, but Kundalini, we can think of it as the expression of Kundalini. Oh, sorry, Kundalini is the expression of prana that is. It's like it's moving towards a sense of wholeness.
It
Like
has
it's like the shortest route to wholeness in terms of expansion of consciousness.
would you say that Kundalini has a like sort of own intelligence? Like a seed grows
Yeah,
towards,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I like that idea. It's got a direction, and in some of the tantric texts, it says that Kundalini Shakti is Guru.
Yeah.
It's precisely because it knows exactly where to
Where
go
to go.
to
Yeah.
reach Shiva, or to reach the crown, to reach the sense of the absolute. It has that inherent
Okay. Good.
intuition, let's say, or it knows where to go. And sexual energy, on the other hand, can be much more localized and associated with the instinct to procreate. And
Yeah.
it can just stay in the erogenous zones and not expand much further than that. We can reach an orgasm just through friction on a very limited part of the body, and the experience can be intense, but it can also be much more limited in its scope.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Were there more questions from the texts?
No, thank you.
All right. All right. Then let me know if others come up. And it looks like so you read the whole of the other one, and you're
Yeah, this I started the other one today. This one. Yeah.
okay. Okay.
Also interesting. Yeah.
So I'll share another one with you. And but I'll give page numbers first. I'll create an index and page numbers first, so it's easier for us to communicate about them as well. All right.
Okay.
Wishing you a beautiful week, and I'll get the information to
Same for
confirm
you.
about the retreat.
Yes, thank you.
Big hug to you.
Bye bye.
Ciao.
Ciao, Peter. Thank you for today.
Pleasure. Bye, Paula.